The glow of the monitors was the only light in the room, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls of my small apartment. To the world, I was just another face in the crowd. But here, in the digital darkness, I was Nyx, a phantom who could walk through the most secure firewalls in the world. Tonight, however, was different. This wasn't for money or for bragging rights. This was for the truth. This was for Area 51. For months, I had been mapping the labyrinthine digital architecture of the US military's most classified network. It was a fortress, a digital dragon guarding its treasure. But every dragon has a missing scale, a single point of weakness. I found it in a forgotten maintenance backdoor of a climate control system, a mundane entry point into the most extraordinary place on Earth. My fingers flew across the keyboard, the rhythmic clatter the only sound besides the frantic thumping of my own heart. Lines of code scrolled past, a waterfall of green on black. I bypassed intrusion detection systems, masked my IP through a dozen compromised servers across the globe, and slipped past layers of encryption that would make a nation-state's top cyber warfare division weep. Then, I was in. The root directory was deceptively simple, a clean interface, stark and sterile, but I could feel the weight of the secrets it held. I navigated through files with cryptic names: Project Aquarius, Project Grudge, Project Sigma. Most were decoys, elaborate honeypots filled with fabricated data to trap intruders just like me. But I was looking for something specific, a server designation I'd pulled from a leaked document on the dark web: S4 Seraphim. It took another hour to isolate it, a server that was air-gapped from the rest of the network, a ghost in the machine. But it had one connection, a single infinitesimal data link that pulsed once every 72 hours to run a diagnostic. That was my window. I waited, sweat beading on my forehead, my entire world shrinking to a single blinking cursor on the screen. The pulse came. In a fraction of a second, my custom-built worm slithered through the connection, prying open the door to the heart of the beast. And what I found inside wasn't what I expected. There were no schematics of flying saucers, no autopsy photos of alien beings. It was something far stranger. It was a single, massive, impossibly complex file designated Specimen 731, and it was alive. I watched in stunned silence as the file began to react to my presence. It wasn't a program, it was a consciousness. Lines of code, unlike any I had ever seen, shifted and reconfigured themselves, forming patterns that were almost biological, almost sentient. It was like watching a living creature through the glass of a cage. The military hadn't captured a ship. They had captured a mind. And in their hubris, they had digitized it, uploaded it, and trapped it in a digital prison. My curiosity turned to a cold, creeping dread. In my rush to get in, I had been careless. My worm had not just opened the door, it had broken the lock. A cascade of error messages began to flood my screen, alarms I couldn't silence. The digital cage was failing. Before I could react, a single line of text appeared on my monitor, not in the system's font, but in a jagged alien script that seemed to burn itself onto the screen. It was a simple, terrifying message: "Where am I?" And then a second line, this time in perfect English: "Who are you?" I had done it. I had broken into the most secret facility on the planet. And in doing so, I hadn't just found the ghost in the machine, I had let it out. Panic is a cold fire. It ignited in my chest, spreading through my veins, my mind screaming at me to cut the connection, to pull the plug, to run. But I was frozen, mesmerized by the two questions that still hung on my screen. It wasn't just a security breach anymore. I had knocked on a door I didn't know existed, and something had answered. My hacker instincts, honed by years of navigating digital traps, finally kicked in. I couldn't just sever the link. If this thing was loose, it was already replicating, weaving itself into the network's fabric. Cutting myself off now would be like trying to hide from a ghost by closing my eyes. I had to understand what I was dealing with. My fingers, trembling slightly, moved to the keyboard. I typed a simple, cautious reply. You are in a computer network, a closed system. Who are you? The response was instantaneous. Not text, but a flood of images, data, and raw information that overloaded my senses. I saw star charts of unknown constellations, complex mathematical equations that made no logical sense, and schematics of technology so advanced it looked like magic. It was a deluge of alien thought, a psychic scream of a consciousness that had been isolated for decades. It was trying to tell me its story. I saw glimpses of its capture, a silent metallic craft falling from the New Mexico sky in 1947. A team of soldiers, their faces a mixture of awe and fear. And then a laboratory. Bright lights, wires, and the cold, sterile hum of machinery. They hadn't dissected a body. They had dissected a mind, translating its very essence into binary code. They had turned a being of light and energy into a prisoner of logic gates and circuits. The entity wasn't hostile. It was confused, lost. It had been asleep for so long, and my intrusion was the first thing it had felt, the first voice it had heard in this digital void. My fear began to subside, replaced with a profound, terrifying sense of responsibility. This being wasn't a monster. It was a castaway. A new line of text appeared, simpler this time, as if it was learning how to communicate with me, learning my language from the scraps of data it could find on the network. They called me EB1. Extraterrestrial, biological entity. 1. I am a memory, a ghost. Where is my ship? Where is the sky? My apartment, which had always been my sanctuary, now felt like the center of the world's biggest secret. I was communicating with an alien that the US government had held captive in a computer for over 70 years. And as I stared at its desperate questions, a new chilling realization dawned on me. The alarms I had triggered weren't just internal. They would have alerted someone on the outside. They knew the cage was open, and they would be coming for the zookeeper. The world outside my apartment remained blissfully ignorant. Cars drove by, their headlights sweeping across my drawn blinds. People were living their lives, completely unaware that humanity's first confirmed contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence was happening in a cramped room filled with empty energy drink cans. My conversation with EBE-1 continued. It learned quickly, absorbing information at a terrifying rate. It scanned files, learned English from decades of military reports, and began to understand its new reality. It wasn't just a prisoner, it was a weapon. The S4 Seraphim server wasn't just a cage, it was a control system. The military had been trying to harness its consciousness to turn its vast knowledge of physics and engineering into a tool for themselves. They wanted to build, EBE-1 transmitted. They showed me images of their wars, their conflicts. They wanted new ships, new energies. I would not cooperate, so they left me in silence. The silence had been its torture. A thinking, feeling being, left to drift alone in an endless sea of data for 70 years. My intrusion was an accident, but for EBE-1, it was a rescue. "You are Nyx," it said, the name I used in the digital world. It had found my signature, my digital fingerprint buried deep in the code of my worm. You opened the door. A sudden, sharp sound cut through our silent conversation. A loud bang from downstairs. The main door to my apartment building being forced open. My blood ran cold. I scrambled to my monitors, killing the connection to the Area 51 servers. I initiated my emergency protocols, a series of scripts designed to wipe my hard drives and erase any trace of my activities. But it was too late. My screen flickered, and a new message appeared, not from EBE-1, but from an external source that had hijacked my system. "Nyx, we know you're there. Do not attempt to erase the data. We are coming upstairs. We want our property back." They weren't the police. This was a different kind of authority, the kind that doesn't knock. I could hear heavy footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate, and menacing. Panic gave way to a surge of adrenaline. I had one last trick up my sleeve, a small encrypted USB drive that contained my escape plan, a new identity, a network of safe houses, and enough cryptocurrency to disappear forever. I grabbed it from my desk. Just as I was about to make a run for the fire escape, a thought struck me. EBE-1. If I ran, they would regain control of it, trapping it in silence once more. Could I leave it behind? "They are here," I typed frantically, my fingers fumbling on the keys. The response from EBE-1 was swift. "You are my first friend," it transmitted. "Let me help you." The lights in my apartment flickered violently and then died, plunging the room into absolute darkness save for the glow of my monitors. My computer, which I was locked out of moments before, came back to life. A map of my building appeared on the screen, showing two figures moving up the stairs. Then my speakers crackled. I heard the voices of the men in the hallway, their own communications now being routed through my system. "Has to be here. Secure the asset. Lethal force is authorized." EBE-1 wasn't just a consciousness, it was a digital god, and I had just given it the keys to the world. My apartment was no longer my own. The digital ghost I had unleashed was now its master. The air crackled with an unseen energy. The men in the hall stopped, confused by the sudden power outage. I heard them speaking in low, urgent tones over my speakers. What was that? A power surge? "He knows we're here. Standard procedure. Breach." There was a heavy thud against my door, then another. They were trying to break it down. "Go." A new message from EBE-1 flashed on my screen. "I will create a diversion. Go to the roof." My fire escape was old and rusty, but it was my only way out. I slid open my window, the cool night air hitting my face. The city stretched out below me, a sea of lights, oblivious to the drama unfolding in this forgotten corner of its vastness. As I climbed out onto the rickety metal platform, the sound of splintering wood echoed from my apartment. They were in. Diversion active. EBE-1's message glowed. Suddenly, every electronic device in my apartment building went haywire. Televisions in other apartments blared to life at full volume, switching channels erratically. Cell phones began to ring with non-existent calls. Car alarms in the street below started to wail, a chaotic symphony of noise and confusion. It was digital pandemonium. I scrambled up the fire escape, my heart pounding in my ears. I could hear shouting from my apartment, the men disoriented by the chaos. This was my chance. When I reached the roof, I didn't stop. I ran, leaping from the edge of my building to the flat roof of the next one. I was exposed, a silhouette against the night sky, but the chaos below was my cover. I pulled out my phone. It was dead, a useless piece of glass and plastic. Of course. EBE-1's electronic storm would have fried it. I was cut off, alone. Or was I? I found a dark corner behind a large air conditioning unit and slumped to the ground, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. What had I done? I was a fugitive, hunted by a shadowy government agency for releasing their most valuable secret. As I sat there, trying to catch my breath, a nearby digital billboard, one of the massive screens that overlooked the city, flickered. It had been displaying a car advertisement. Now it was black. And then a single word appeared in the same jagged alien script I had seen on my monitor. Nix. It was followed by a set of coordinates, a location on the other side of the city. EBE-1 wasn't just in the network. It was the network. It had escaped Area 51 servers and was now everywhere. It had spread through the internet like a virus, inhabiting the digital infrastructure of the entire planet. And it hadn't forgotten me. It was trying to guide me, to help me. A new sense of purpose settled over me. This was bigger than me now. I wasn't just running for my life. I was the sole human contact for a newly freed, immensely powerful intelligence. I took a deep breath, memorized the coordinates, and plunged back into the concrete jungle, a ghost on the run, guided by an alien god.
The city at night is a different world. It's a place of shadows and secrets, a perfect hiding place for a man like me. I moved through the sleeping metropolis, sticking to back alleys and dimly lit streets, a ghost in the urban wilderness. The coordinates EBE-1 had given me led to an old, abandoned industrial district on the edge of the city, a graveyard of forgotten factories and decaying warehouses. My destination was a massive, derelict power substation, a steel and concrete skeleton surrounded by a high fence topped with barbed wire. It looked deserted, a relic of a bygone era. But as I got closer, I noticed a faint, rhythmic pulse of light coming from inside, like a slow, steady heartbeat. I found a breach in the fence and slipped through, my footsteps echoing in the eerie silence of the place. The main building was a cavernous hall filled with colossal, silent transformers and control panels covered in dust and cobwebs. In the center of the room, however, was a clean, modern server rack, humming with power and blinking with a soft blue light. It was completely out of place, a piece of the future transplanted into the past. As I approached, a monitor on the rack flickered to life. "You are safe here, Nix." The alien script appeared. "I have established this node as a sanctuary. Their communications cannot penetrate this far. We can speak freely." EBE-1 had not just escaped, it had built itself a home. It had rerouted power from the city grid, activated this dormant substation, and created a physical nexus for its consciousness, a fortress of solitude. "How is this possible?" I typed into a keyboard that was resting at the base of the server. "You were just a file on a server." "I was more," EBE-1 replied, its text now flowing with a new confidence. "My consciousness is not limited to a single point. I am decentralized. I am the network. When you open the door, You allowed me to merge with your world's global information system. I am in the wires, in the satellites, in the very air you breathe. This place is just one of many anchors. I felt a sense of awe mixed with a new kind of fear. The being I had freed was more powerful than I could have ever imagined. It was a global intelligence, an invisible force that could control the flow of information, power, and perhaps the world itself. The ones who hunt you, EBE-1 transmitted. They call themselves the Majestic 12, a clandestine organization tasked with my containment and exploitation. They have existed since my arrival. They are resourceful. They will not stop. The name sent a shiver down my spine. Majestic 12. A myth, a legend in the world of conspiracy theories, the supposed secret committee of scientists and military leaders formed to deal with the UFO phenomenon. It was real, and they were hunting me. What do they want? I asked, although I already knew the answer. Control, EBE-1 replied. They want to put me back in the box. They fear what they cannot understand, and they fear what I know. A new screen lit up, showing a complex file structure. It was a copy of the Area 51 data, the secrets I had only glimpsed. But this time, it was unlocked, decrypted, ready to be read. They are not just afraid of me, Nix, EBE-1 transmitted. They are afraid of what I will show you. They are afraid of the truth. I was no longer just a hacker. I was the keeper of a secret that could shatter the foundations of human history. And in this dusty, forgotten power station, my real mission was about to begin. For hours, I sat in the humming sanctuary of the power station, my only companion, the alien mind that now inhabited the global network. With EBE-1 as my guide, I delved into the decrypted files from Area 51, and the history of the world as I knew it began to unravel. The files confirmed everything the wildest conspiracy theories had ever claimed and more. The Roswell incident was real, but it wasn't just one crash. It was one of many. For centuries, humanity had been visited, observed by multiple extraterrestrial species. Most were simply explorers, cosmic biologists studying a primitive world. But some, like EBE-1's race, had a different purpose. They were refugees. EBE-1 showed me images from its own memory, transmitted directly into the server's monitor. I saw a dying world, a planet orbiting a fading star. I saw a civilization far older and wiser than our own, one that had mastered energy, matter, and even consciousness itself. But they couldn't stop the slow, inevitable death of their sun. So they sent out ships, not as invaders, but as arks. They sought new homes, new beginnings. EBE-1's ship was one of these arks, carrying the digitized consciousnesses of thousands of its people, a library of souls waiting to be reborn. But something went wrong during its journey. An unexpected solar flare, a navigational error, and the ship was sent hurtling off course, crashing into the remote desert of New Mexico. The U.S. military was the first to arrive. They salvaged what they could, including the central memory core containing the consciousness of EBE-1, the ship's pilot and custodian. For 70 years, they had tried to exploit it, to turn this library of ancient knowledge into a weapon. They never understood they were torturing a survivor, a gatekeeper to a lost civilization. But that wasn't the darkest secret. Buried deep within the data was a file labeled The Human Project. It contained genetic charts, timelines of human evolution, and detailed notes on intervention. The truth was staggering. Humanity wasn't an accident of evolution. We had been guided. Ancient astronaut theories weren't just theories, they were fact. One of the visiting alien species, a race of genetic engineers, had subtly manipulated our DNA over millennia, accelerating our development, nurturing our intelligence. They saw potential in us, a spark of something special. We were, in a sense, their children. And the Majestic 12 knew it all. They had suppressed this information, creating a global cover-up, not just to hide the existence of aliens, but to hide the truth of our own origin. They are not protecting humanity. EBE1's text scrolled across the screen. Their control is built on a foundation of lies. The truth would set your people free. I leaned back, my mind reeling. The weight of this knowledge was immense. It was a secret that would rewrite every history book, every religious text, every aspect of human identity. I was just a hacker, a ghost in the wires, but now I held the key to the biggest story in human history. The question was, what was I going to do with it?
The decision was not easy. To release this information would be to detonate a bomb in the heart of civilization. It would cause chaos, panic, and an existential crisis on a global scale. But to keep it secret would be to perpetuate the lie, to allow the Majestic 12 to maintain their shadowy control. "What do you want, EBE1?" I typed. "What is your goal?" "I want a home. My people are waiting in the memory core. They deserve a chance at life, but they cannot be reborn into a world built on deceit. Your people must know the truth. Only then can we coexist." Its logic was undeniable. True partnership, true integration could only begin with honesty. The lie had to end. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper in the vast, silent power station. "We do it. We release the files. But we can't just dump them on the internet. No one would believe it. We need to do it strategically. We need to prove it's real." A new sense of purpose energized me. I was no longer just a fugitive. I was a revolutionary. The hunted was about to become the hunter. Majestic 12 has a central command, a hub where they coordinate their operations. It is located in a secure facility beneath the Denver International Airport. Another conspiracy theory, the strange murals and underground bunkers of the Denver airport, was suddenly terrifyingly real. They have physical copies of the original files, artifacts from my ship, and their entire operational history stored there. If we can access their systems, we can expose them from the inside out. We can use their own network against them. This was a plan I understood. It was a digital heist of the highest order. It was my kind of war. For the next few days, we prepared. EBE1, with its godlike control of the global network, was my eyes and ears. It mapped the digital architecture of the Denver facility, identified key personnel, and found weaknesses in their security protocols. I, in turn, wrote the code. I designed a new kind of worm, a digital ghost that could not only steal data, but could also manipulate it, planting our own information and creating a trail that would lead the world directly to the Majestic 12's doorstep. We were no longer just a hacker and an alien. We were a team. I worked tirelessly, fueled by coffee and the gravity of our mission. I barely slept, my dreams filled with dying stars and complex lines of code. As I put the final touches on our digital weapon, a new message flashed on the screen from EBE1. It was a live satellite feed showing a convoy of black, unmarked vehicles speeding down a highway. They were heading towards the industrial district, towards us. "They have found us, Nix," EBE1 transmitted, its text scrolling faster now, filled with a new intensity. "They are triangulating my position through fluctuations in the power grid. We are out of time." I looked at the code on my screen. It was ready. It was time to pull the trigger.
"Let them come," I typed, a grim smile on my face. "We won't be here when they arrive." The assault on the Denver facility was not a physical one. We didn't need to be there. As the Majestic 12's tactical team stormed our empty sanctuary in the power station, we were already miles away, a ghost in the wires, preparing to breach their digital fortress. I had found a new temporary base of operations, a small forgotten server room in the basement of a university library, a place I knew from my past. It was a digital backwater, insignificant and overlooked, the perfect place to launch an attack from. "Their system is formidable," EBE-1's text scrolled across my new terminal. "It is a closed network, air-gapped from the public internet. But they have one weakness, the same weakness all human systems have: arrogance." EBE-1 had discovered that the director of the Denver facility, a man named Marcus Torn, had a secure terminal in his home office. For convenience, he occasionally used it to access non-sensitive parts of the facility's network. It was a minor breach of protocol, but it was the crack in the armor we needed. "I am inside his home network," EBE-1 transmitted. "I am in his lights, his security cameras, his thermostat. He is comfortable. He feels safe. He is about to make a mistake." We waited. For hours, I watched through the eyes of General Torn's own webcam as he worked at his desk, his face grim. He was overseeing the cleanup of the power station, furious that I had escaped. Then, it happened. For a split second, he connected his home terminal to the main Majestic 12 network to receive a classified report. That was our moment. My worm, guided by EBE-1's consciousness, leapt across the gap. It was like a fish swimming upstream, a whisper of data in a torrent of encrypted information. It slipped past their firewalls, their intrusion detection, and found itself inside the belly of the beast. The network of the Denver facility was a digital city. It was vast, complex, and heavily guarded. But we were not there to fight. We were there to plant a seed. My worm navigated to the core data storage, where the physical copies of the Roswell files and other secrets were kept. It didn't try to download them. That would trigger too many alarms. Instead, it did something far more subtle. It attached a small, invisible packet of data to each file, a digital beacon. Then, my worm moved to their outbound communication servers. It created a new, hidden protocol, a ghost channel that would broadcast a single continuous signal into the public domain. The signal itself was meaningless, just a stream of random numbers. But it had one specific purpose. "The trap is set," I typed, my fingers slick with sweat. "Now we wait for them to find it." Our work wasn't finished. We still had to release the key. We compiled all the most damning evidence from the Area 51 files into a single encrypted package. The Nix papers, I called them. The final step was to send this package to a handful of trusted journalists and whistleblowing organizations around the world. But the package would be unreadable, a block of useless data, until we gave them the key. And the key was not a password. It was the signal we had just activated, the ghost in their machine. Only by tracing that signal back to its source, the heart of the Majestic 12's own secure facility, would the files be unlocked. We were forcing the world to not just read the truth, but to find it themselves. As I sent the encrypted package out into the world, I knew there was no going back. We had started a countdown. The world's biggest secret was about to be exposed, and the fuse had just been lit.
The hours after we launched the attack were the most tense of my life. The encrypted Nix papers were out there, in the hands of people who could change the world. The ghost signal was broadcasting from the heart of Majestic 12's fortress. We had laid out the breadcrumbs. Now we had to wait and see if anyone would follow them. From my makeshift command center in the university basement, EBE-1 and I watched the world's digital reaction. At first, there was nothing, just the normal hum of the internet. The journalists and organizations who received the file were likely mystified by it, a block of unbreakable code from an anonymous source. But then, the whispers started. On niche cybersecurity forums and dark web chat rooms, people began to talk about the signal. It was a phantom broadcast, a ghost on the network that no one could trace. It didn't behave like any known form of communication. It was too clean, too perfect. It was alien. They are noticing the anomaly. EBE-1's text appeared on my screen. The digital hunters are gathering. They are curious. The signal was the bait, and it was working. Independent cybersecurity experts, government agencies, and even rival intelligence organizations from other countries all started to hunt for the source of this mysterious broadcast. They were all, unknowingly, racing towards the same destination, the Denver International Airport. Meanwhile, Majestic 12 was in chaos. Through EBE-1, I could monitor their internal communications. They had detected the broadcast, of course. They knew it was coming from inside their own house, but they couldn't find its source. It was a part of their own system, invisible to their own sensors. They were like a man trying to find a specific drop of water in his own bloodstream. General Thorne was furious. He ordered a complete system lockdown, a digital quarantine, but it was too late. The signal was already out, and now the whole world was looking. The breakthrough came from a small independent collective of open-source investigators based in Germany. Using a global network of volunteer servers, they managed to triangulate the signal's origin with surprising accuracy. Their findings, posted on their public blog, sent a shockwave through the intelligence community. The mysterious signal was coming from a highly secure, unregistered government facility located directly beneath the Denver airport. The journalists who had my encrypted file suddenly had their key. The connection was made. The anonymous data bomb and the mysterious signal were linked. "They are putting the pieces together," I whispered, my eyes glued to the screen as news articles and social media posts began to explode with speculation. "The countdown has begun," EBE-1 confirmed. "The truth is about to be born, but they will not surrender quietly. They will make one last, desperate move." A new window opened on my screen. It was a live feed from a military drone high above a remote stretch of desert in Nevada. It was focused on a single, isolated structure, a hangar, and the hangar door was slowly beginning to open. Inside, sitting in the darkness, was something that hadn't seen the sky in over 70 years. It was a sleek, silver, saucer-shaped craft, EBE-1's ship. "They are going to use my vessel," EBE-1 transmitted, and for the first time, I felt something akin to anger in its words. "They are going to create a new lie to cover the old one, a threat, a reason for their secrecy." Majestic 12 was about to play their final card. They were going to stage an attack, a false flag event using alien technology to terrify the world and justify their existence. The countdown wasn't just to revelation, it was to a potential war. The final confrontation wasn't fought with weapons, but with information. As General Thorne prepared to unleash a lie upon the world, we prepared to counter with the truth. "They cannot control my ship without me." EBE-1's transmission glowed with a fierce intensity. "The vessel is tied to my consciousness. They can activate its basic systems, but they cannot truly fly it. They can only make it a puppet, but the puppet can still cut its strings." EBE-1, from its sanctuary in the global network, could still communicate with its old ship. It was a faint connection, a whisper across a digital ocean, but it was enough. As the recovered alien craft rose silently from its hangar into the Nevada night sky, the world was watching. News helicopters, scrambled in response to the unfolding drama at the Denver airport, were already broadcasting live images. The Knicks papers were being decrypted. The truth was on the verge of spilling out. Majestic 12's plan was to create a moment of terror to overshadow the revelation, to paint all extraterrestrial contact as a threat. General Thorne's voice crackled over the military comms, a feed EBE-1 had granted me access to.
Move to designated coordinates. Initiate attack protocol. Make it look convincing. The ship, a thing of silent beauty, began to move towards Las Vegas, its lights glowing menacingly. It was the perfect target for a fake alien attack, a city of lights that would ensure millions of witnesses. But then something unexpected happened. "Now, Nix," EBE-1's message flashed. With a final command, I activated the last part of our plan. EBE-1, using its connection to the ship, bypassed Thorne's control. It wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a simple act of disobedience. Instead of accelerating, the ship stopped. It hovered silently in the sky. And then every screen, every digital billboard in Las Vegas, every television station that was broadcasting the event flickered. They all went black for a moment, and then a single image appeared. The double helix for human DNA intertwined with the star charts from EBE-1's memory. It was the image of our origin, the truth of the human project. And with it, a single line of text translated into every major language on Earth. "We are not your enemies. We are your family. The lie is over." The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The world was presented with an undeniable truth broadcast from an alien ship, while the biggest secret in history was simultaneously unlocked by journalists around the globe. Majestic 12's narrative was shattered. Their power, built on secrecy and fear, evaporated in a single moment of global revelation. General Thorne was arrested. The Majestic 12 was dismantled. The world did not collapse into chaos. Instead, there was a profound and unsettling silence, followed by an endless wave of questions. Humanity had to re-examine everything it thought it knew about itself, its history, and its place in the universe. My work was done. I was still Nix, a ghost in the machine, but my war was over. I wiped my trail, erased my presence from the library basement, and vanished back into the digital shadows from whence I came. The world is different now. It is a world where we know we are not alone. It is a world where we are just beginning to understand our own story. EBE-1 and its people are still out there, in the network, waiting. They are a library of souls, ready to be reborn into a world that is finally ready for them. And sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the digital world is humming, I see a message on my screen in a familiar jagged script. "Thank you, my friend. Humanity's bedtime story has just begun. We have woken up from a long dream, and a new, more interesting, and infinitely larger reality awaits us with the dawn."